I could definitely tell the humidity just dropped, which leads me to think that I might get some rain up here just like you did down there. But it looks pretty nice down there now, so it looks like the evening's going to be bright no matter what up here.
Yeah, man, it just rained for like 15 minutes. I was at the park for a while, like about a couple hours, just resting there with the family. And then after that, we left, and shortly after, it started to rain, but it didn't last. If it lasts 15 minutes, that was a lot. And now, look, it's beautiful. It's sunny out, so I'm just here walking around the neighborhood and just shooting shit with you, bro.
I found that a lot of people have actually started doing more outdoor stuff, which I like. I saw Trek sold out of like a lot of their inventory and bikes, and I just got a kayak not too long ago, and the same thing with the kayak companies, where it's just been an uptick and spike in like people wanting outdoor things. I'm pretty glad. I'm happy about it because I feel like people feel better in nature for a reason. Nature does a lot for us, does a lot for like mental health and all that stuff too. So I like
Yeah,
it.
mental health is important, especially nowadays with all the pressures of the world. I think looking for a way out, even if it's just walking around outdoors, is good for the mind. And vitamin D is important for your immune system. So if you're trying to fight against like COVID or anything else, because think about it, Joe. Like we've been washing our hands and sanitizing and all this shit. And what you do when you do that over and over again, you break down your immune system. So we have to build up our immune system to protect against not only like COVID or a second wave, but just regular like flu season and germs and everything else that the earth throws at us.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that's why I'm big into the mushroom stuff. So I've been telling a
yes,
lot of people about the mushroom farm that I'm starting here, and that's been one of the most exciting things for me with that is just knowing that like we now have another food, a superfood that's super healthy for people. It's an antiviral, and it also comes from nature, and yeah, and I just think it's good for people. And I think for people right now, they're trying to find good in the world. There's like, oh, oh, I almost knocked that mic over. They're trying to find good in the world, and it's freaking hard right now, man. Like, I feel like when we were talking to people a year ago about a lot of this stuff, like society was still functioning in this happy lottie-dottie life. Like, like you're going out to bars. Like, you could tell people were spending a lot of money going out places and stuff. Like, it's the good times, right? It's like the roaring 20s. And then now, like, the shit sucks because not only are they locked down, 40, 50 million Americans are unemployed, not paying rent. So it's like, I think that these are nice outlets for people right now because, I mean, times do suck right now. But the nature, it's free to go walk in the woods. They're not
that's
stopping
right,
us from
Joe.
doing that.
I know you're really deep into the mushrooms and mycelium and all that. I know you and I talk about it a lot. And you just let the people know wraps caps, what you do, why you think it's important. I think mycelium and the whole world of fungi is more important that people actually understand. Paul Stamets is a huge pioneer in that world, but you are also leading that trend. And as let's let the
Yeah.
people. I want the people to know why you like that,
Yeah.
why you're into it. Because I'm into it, but you're deep into it, and I love it. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, I'm super deep into it. We've been talking about it from a while. So, rapscaps.com is where everyone can go to for more information. We're a mushroom farm in Middletown, Connecticut, and we grow gourmet oyster mushrooms. And these are culinary mushrooms that are very high class. They're beautiful. Golden oyster, pink oyster, blue oyster, king oyster mushrooms. And they're mushrooms that you would see kind of at nicer restaurants. Chefs buy them. But they're super nutritious. They're a very high source of vitamin D. They have antiviral properties. These are mushrooms that are medicinal in nature. And it's that's just what I'm doing now, and what drove me to that was really learning about mushroom mycelium and how insane fungi is, dude. It's insane. It's insane. Like, really, some people think that fungi. We know it was the first organism on this rock after the Big Bang. It was the first known organism. we know that we are actually descendants of fungi. Our genetic code, like we as people, broke off from the genetic code from fungi. We have a closer relationship with fungi than we do with any other animal in the animal kingdom, including the primate. Um, and so that's one thing. The health benefits as antivirals. There's a smallpox and an anthrax vaccination that is derived from mushroom extracts. There's You can look up now turkey tail mushrooms, all of the anti-cancer research that exists, and we're learning now with the new research on psychedelic mushrooms and also medicinal culinary mushrooms such as lion's mane, which is a culinary mushroom. It's a beautiful mushroom. It takes on the flavor of lobster. Um, these are substances that are not just preventing your brain from breaking down brain cells, but they're allowing people to grow more brain cells and form these new pathways to thought, which is clearing their anxiety. It's ending depression. It's treating drug addiction. So that, and then lastly is the environmental solution. So, dude, mushroom mycelium right now is being used to take away the carbon in these oil poisoned fields of grass by like factories that they can't use anymore, and they're literally able to make that soil into compostable soil where you can now use that land. And so it's one of the, I think that mushroom mycelium fungi right now, in my opinion, are the solution to a lot of the problems we have going on in the world, and that's why I've been so obsessed about it. Like, it's insane. And
Yeah.
we learned from Paul Stamets. I learned from Paul Stamets, and we've been talking about it on the show for quite a while too.
Yeah,
It,
people are sleeping on mushrooms and fungi as a whole, as an organism that mimics, well, actually, our internet and digital systems throughout the world mimic mycelium and that organism. And I think it says a lot, right? It says that, we are probably based around that world of what, the mushroom world is actually based off of, right? It's one united organism under, mycelium, right? Our brains, if you look at our brains and the way it attaches to each other, similar to what mycelium is. That's why, researchers and doctors out there, they've done, they've had a lot of evidence that mycelium and the way our brains are actually attached through, the axioms and all of that are so similar. And how mushrooms, the different types of mushrooms helps to actually reattach or build new pathways, neural pathways, because what our brains are just, the neuroplasticity of our brains is just, it's tremendous. We see it in children, right? When, I have a baby, he just turned 1, and his brain is, very malleable. Human brains are still very malleable throughout the ages, throughout, the decades. They're still malleable, and, there's evidence that mushrooms actually continues to help the neuroplasticity of a brain. So I think that's awesome that, more and more people like yourself, Joe, are out there really, setting the way for that, because we need to, we are out there looking into like space and trying to explore that, but we haven't really explored the brain, which is something that, as time goes on, and, if the more and more, if I could become more successful and all that, I want to myself, do a deep dive in the brain. I want to be able to, have a philanthropic group that actually explores the brain and helps mental health, because like myself, you've talked about mental health and other veterans. It's super important
mm-hmm.
to really explore the brain, to figure out what's going on in there, because, we talk about mental health, but, how can you talk about the health of the brain if we don't understand what actually deteriorates it, and what's, how you can improve? We talk about
Yeah.
exercise and all that, but there's so much more to the brain than that. It's the most powerful organ in the world, I think, in my opinion, as sophisticated organisms, right? We have other animals, but us as humans, we are the ones that are actually out there creating, we create planes and cars and software. Other animals aren't doing that. So I think our brains are super powerful, and I think it's important for the health of this world and ourselves.
Yeah, they say that the brain is the most, like you're saying, the most unknown organ in the body. Like, we know more about the heart and the cardiovascular system and the skeletal system the endocrine system. Then we do the brain and the nervous system, central nervous system. And like for me, this is like the next exploration of that. And you tied it back too with like mushroom mycelium and the brain interacting and looking the same. They do. Mycelium grows. It's fascinating. It's this white. It's an organism. It breathes in oxygen. It exhales CO2 just like we do. It's one layer thick, so it's like the equivalent of one layer of a skin thick. And when it grows underneath the soil, just underneath the soil, and it connects into this ever expanding web of nodes that come on, and that's how it grows, is through this neural network. And it grows for a large amount if you let it to. The largest mycelial mass in the United States is in the old growth forest in the northwest corner of the country, and it's a couple hundred square miles of this one consistently connected mycelium. And it's insane because when you walk on that in that area, you are walking on this organism that is breathing, that expands square miles. This is what they refer to as Gaia. This is Mother Earth. This is exactly what like a lot of these East early beliefs and all that is based on, and it's fascinating to me. And Mike, like you're saying too, is that the human brain matches mycelium. Our brain is neurons that are connected in nodes. They're nodes. Your neurons are nodes. The internet, they say, is a replica of mycelium. The internet is just a series of nodes, computers, that are all linked to each other all around the world to create this network. And the more that come on, the more that network grows. We know these as network effects. So I think there's a good argument to say that, mycelium plays a larger role into the unknowns of the universe and even within our brains. And they probably are a solution, and it's looking like that, to a lot of the mental health problems. So, yeah, man. So we'll share, I think, with everyone, too, going forward. And we do have in our shop on our website, we have links to all of the recommended Paul Stamets mycelium supplement products. They're great. Lion's mane for the brain, reishi for general health, turkey tail for antiviral. You can look them up. They're all real good.
Yeah, I love Paul Stamets, and I'm not trying to promote them, but everything that we talk about is just stuff that we actually feel passionate about. So, guys, take it for what you think. Everything we're going to talk about, from before, now, and forward, is always things that we believe in and what we think is going to help not only us, but other people as well. I think Paul Stamets is really pushing forward with great research. He's highly respected in the community, not only within like the fungi world, but also within the scientific world. He's really respected, and he's also he has his own experiments out there where he's trying to help the bee hive population. He's trying to help that grow so that the destruction of them slows down, because it's super important to humanity. Not only humanity, because that's very selfish. It's just we're important, but just the earth and the organism itself. So, everything that we talk about here, we highly believe in, and yeah, just look into it, and you'll see why we do believe in these things.
I want to give one more plug, Mike, for myself. And then we'll move on from Rab's Caps. But I told you about the thought I had for next spring. I'll announce it to the audience too. Leave comments in the comments section on how you feel about this. Tell me how you feel about this. But I'm thinking of doing a fundraiser next spring. It would be late spring, early summer, and I would take my kayak and I would go consecutively for the full length of the Connecticut River. Connecticut River starts up northern New Hampshire on the border of Maine, and then it ends at Long Island Sound, where it spits out from Old Saybrook in Connecticut. So I would just take it the full way, nonstop, document the whole thing the entire time, teach people about outdoors, document water samples, take a research-based approach. But all of this would be in support of the bees and bee research, because the mushrooms are a part of that right now that is saving the honeybee population. So I'm gonna let the audience know that might be coming up. Let me know how you feel about that.
That'd be awesome, Joe. I think that's something.
And if you have an idea on a name, put a campaign name in there too, and maybe I'll pick one.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Joe, yeah, so we're just, I know we're just shooting shit here, but what are your, what are your thoughts of what's going on right now? Like yesterday, I saw something interesting, and I think it goes back to Connecticut. I saw the Dow Jones, right, and apparently Raytheon and Exxon, two other companies I can't reach, I can't recall right now, but they all are all like taken out from the Dow Jones, right? I think
Yeah.
that's pretty significant because that just shows that traditional industries are being replaced by, new age, like tech. We see Salesforce now in there. You see a lot of what you think would be in Nasdaq now actually is in Dow Jones. So that's pretty interesting, Joe.
Yeah. It's
And you worked for UTC, which later on just recently been acquired by Raytheon.
it
So,
was getting
and
windy.
then, yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring it up because it's funny, right? You work for UTC, and we saw a lot going on, like for our audience. I used to live in Connecticut. Joe still lives out there, and UTC is one of the biggest companies, one of the most powerful
Yep.
corporations in that state.
Yep.
Not only do they hire a good amount of people, but they have a lot of influence. And since it is more in the aerospace and defense type of industry, you could see the influence they have, not only here or there in Connecticut and the Northeast, but also Washington. So, UTC started to change a lot of their organizational structures. They sold off Sikorsky. They sold them off to to Lockheed. They sold them off to Lockheed.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the Blackhawks were being made by UTC, but now they're being made by they're continuing with Sikorsky, but under the brand of Lockheed. And then Carrier still that got sold off, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna move inside too, Mike, because it's just looking a little cloudy
Yeah,
here.
no,
So
you'll keep
the
talking. So
audience can keep me going here. Yeah. So with the Dow though, what was the news you said with the Dow with them again?
so Raytheon got kicked out of the Dow Jones, and also ExxonMobil got kicked out of the Dow Jones. So I don't know if you saw it, Joe, but that's pretty that's historical. This was yesterday. Kicked out of the Dow Jones. Think
Yeah.
about that. That's ExxonMobil, one of the richest companies in the world, and still is. They're saying they're kicking out these corporations because even though they're worth an exponential amount of money, their shares aren't worth the same. So
Yeah.
you have ExxonMobil. I think they're trading at 20 or 30 or $40 a share.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look into Apple's probably a couple hundred, and a couple other companies out there like Salesforce it's way over $100 a share.
Yeah.
So they're saying that within the Dow Jones, they're keeping corporations that are worth billions and billions of dollars, but also when it comes to share price, they're keeping corporations that are worth more of $100, $200, $300 a share instead of $20, $30 or less. So that's why they kicked out ExxonMobil. And you know what? It's crazy because ExxonMobil was like the richest or the most valued corporation in the world up until Apple, went through and this, and went over them, and then also Aramco, which is like Saudi Arabia's oil corporation that went IPO about 2 years ago. So now Exxon is not even in the Dow Jones, and Raytheon is a defense corporation, one of the top ones. They're not there anymore, so that's crazy.
Yeah, it's reorganizing. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average has the largest. It's supposed to have the largest companies in the U.S. pretty much, right? UTC had been a part of that crew. They were a top 20 company globally with, I believe, 50 billion in gross sales a year. And now after this merger with Raytheon, after they've split the business, they've obviously dropped in market cap. So United Technologies as a whole went from having 3 business units, that being aerospace, elevators, and then commercial fire security suppressions and everything. Once you split those apart into separate companies, they're smaller by market cap overall. So the aerospace side, Pratt and Whitney and United Technologies Aerospace, Rockwell Collins or Collins Aerospace now, They're still a larger of the business, 20 billion, but they merged with Raytheon, so we knew that that was a more defense arm there. Mike, you and I have our opinions. I looked at it as a strategic move, maybe by the U.S. government in a time where the airline industry is a crisis in the U.S. Boeing has not had airplanes in the sky for 2 years. That was going into COVID. Is that they didn't have airplanes in the sky for a year or so. There's pension fund managers a year ago that were screaming because they had Boeing stock in all their pension funds. And if Boeing is the only U.S. airframer that's no longer making airframes, you do not have a U.S. airframer. So the fact that United Technologies, after the Rockwell Collins acquisition, gave the ability that they were the monopoly. Really, they make everything else. They make everything else. They own the tire systems. It only made sense that they would, you'd merge with a defense company because there's government control there. There's direct funding of capital in the event of a financial crisis, which is happening now, and they're able to do it. So, we brought cash back on shore. It was a magnificent event. But with that, though, we're seeing these companies drop because they're not bigger than Apple's. Like Fang, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google. There's a couple of the other ones now. There's only like 4 or 5 companies that make up for most of the revenue in the S&P 500, which has a lot of companies in the S&P, way more than the Dow. But they're holding them up. So I guess it kind of makes sense at this point from a regulator's perspective, but it's interesting how the shakeup's happening, and it's interesting how it's happening right now in a global reset, depression, a currency crisis, So they're getting sneaky with it. I tell people don't buy stocks right now. You're buying,
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I say the same thing. If anything, purchase. If I still say, buy crypto. Bitcoin, Monero. We talk a lot about it. I think that's something people should diversify their funds in.
yeah,
Gold and silver. Also, I think all four as alternative, baskets to put your wealth in. It's great. And then also within either crypto or gold or silver, put some money aside, or even on a money market. My opinion, maybe put some aside. So if we do bottom out soon in the market, you could, catch these stocks at a super discount, so that, you could leave it there for, 10 years from now, right? Just leave it there. Aside from everything else you have stashed, I think we're in a situation where we should have these diversified assets within our names. And, just because we are in such an insecure situation, we just saw what Warren Buffett buy all this gold, and that's a huge conversation, right?
yeah, and he had cash.
So
He had cash. He
yeah,
knows liquid.
he has cash.
Yeah,
Apple has tons. They
yeah.
have billions and billions of dollars in cash, and that's going back to what you're saying, Joe. We look at the Dow Jones and we look at Apple, and now we're looking at like Salesforce. What they are showing is that they do not need government intervention to succeed and keep a high valuation for their for what is that? Is that a tornado watch or something?
I was gonna say police state.
Yeah, that reminded me of like Iraq.
Yeah, incoming,
Yeah,
incoming,
sorry about that.
incoming.
Yeah, incoming. Yeah, going back to the stocks, right?
Yeah.
You look at Raytheon. Raytheon needs the U.S. government to continue to be successful because they are a defense company. And so, a company like Apple and Salesforce doesn't need them. They're doing well without government intervention, which says a lot, right? These technocratic, corporations, they're doing extremely well in a pandemic / economic crisis.
Yeah.
So, going back to what we were saying with gold, crypto, and all of that, right? We want to be able to succeed in a crisis. We need to look at alternatives. So, going forward, and when I'm talking about, I'm not trying to promote any stocks or anything like that. I'm just expressing or replicating my thought process as what I want to do with my assets going forward is, buy Bitcoin, Monero, silver, gold, and have some cash set aside for everyday expenses, and then some for just in case the market crashes. I could buy some up real quick, and maybe even some foreign currencies that are actually doing well. Swiss francs. I go back to Swiss francs. They're doing well comparative to others just because of their system, but they're still fiat in a way. They used to be gold based, but they're not.
Yeah.
But still, they're not reproducing the way we are or other central banks are. So this is just my way of thinking. So I might be completely wrong and I might be a fool, but I think, with what I've read and what you've read and all these other experts out there, I think I might not be that wrong. So
No, and I think you're right, Mike. And the other thing we've been telling people is if you're going to buy stocks, buy mining company stocks, the stock miners. Warren Buffett, the reason why he had 146 billion in cash for a year is that once the crash happens, you need liquid money, liquid assets, cash. That's a form of liquid asset where you could buy it up instantly because you have it on hand. So, and what did he do with that money? He bought a gold mining company. So, these gold mining stocks and these silver mining stocks, this is where you hear about the once in every 50-year opportunity to make a few thousand% on these. And we give that in the newsletter. If you can go to the nonconformist.io/subscribe. And that's one of the things that we actually promote monthly is our gold and silver stock recommendations. We'll tell you what we're doing and what we recommend. And then we also do that for crypto. We do that because we're a financial newsletter. So this is a part of the value that you get through subscribing to us is that we tell you what we're doing and we help you grow this wealth. So, the promotional stuff, like Mike said, isn't us pumping anything. It's just the fact that this is what we've been doing. This is what we've been doing for a long time now, over a year and a half. Last year, as the people that were telling you everything in crypto is bad, as Jamie Dimon was on TV talking crap about Bitcoin, as Warren Buffett was saying that gold and Bitcoin are like rat poison, we were telling you to buy. And if you were buying then and then you held until now, you'd be in a lot of a better situation financially than you would be where you are now. So we do this for you, and that's just the value that we provide. And we do a good job at it too. So, and this is just awesome, dude. You and I have talked about this, Mike. For years from now, we will look back at this time, and this will have been a historical shift in society. It'll have been a historical shift on a larger scale for the economy. It only happens every once in 100 to 120 years or so. And, I'm pretty happy that we're able to document it together and then share this knowledge with others and help them grow and preserve their wealth too. Because it's a big deal.
yeah, I definitely think so. You and I started this just to, record our conversations and all of that, and document what we think is going on in the present and maybe in the future. And as we went on, it just shows that, the mainstream media. We didn't go off the mainstream media. We look at the mainstream media as obviously a voice to what's going on in the world, but not an accurate or completely unbiased voice. So us doing what we are doing, recording our conversations and trying to dialogue and create dialogues amongst other people similar to us or maybe not, completely different, is great. And that's what we're going to continue doing as long as we have a platform. And if we don't, you and I will continue doing this amongst ourselves. This is just the way we are.
That's why you need to subscribe to our newsletters because the technocrats are here. We will at some point, I'll bet you, be censored and taken down and deranked in not just YouTube but also Facebook. But we have other options, library.com, bitshoot.com, which we're on, that are decentralized platforms. But the only way that you can stay informed on that and get updates on our newest episodes and also our free newsletter is if you go to the nonconformist.io and subscribe to our free newsletter. And that's my recommendation for him, Mike. And
we'll continue talking forward about what's going on. We got the elections coming soon, which we know are going to be super contentious. Will it be a close call or not? We'll see. I think, we think it probably will. We know the country is super divided, which is more than we've seen in decades.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. We see, continue riots, every day in a different location. There's cops continuing to shoot, innocent people or not innocent people. We have to see, but these things are going on. It's, my opinion, I think, there needs to be more oversight over these law enforcement personnel and their use of action because, when I was in the military, we wouldn't use this course of action if it wasn't necessary. And unfortunately, we're seeing things like this is just adding to the problem. And other, people are scared of officers. officers are scared of like actually going out there and doing their job. This does not help anyone. So I think, it's good to talk about these things. We have racism, we have the use of racism for political gain. We have all these things that are happening. And since the division is so large, we don't dialogue about it more. And what we have is more division. Think of it like if I say something positive about cops, then certain type of people will be thinking that, oh, you're all supporting about that and you're racist. And if I talk all about, hey, there's a lot of people out there that are being abused by police officers, and I'm against like cops. And you know what? It's both right and wrong, because there's both are happening. There's a government abuse. There's law enforcement abuse. There's racial tension, and at the same time, there are good cops out there. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that are good in government, but at the end of the day, who has the power? And that's what we need to check. We got to check their power so that things could be a little more fair. So, call me a liberal or conservative. I'm neither. Honestly, I have my own views. I don't subscribe to any of those, because the world is way more complicated than joining red or blue.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, this isn't the Yankees or the Red Sox. All right, this is very fucking serious. So,
And that's going to be it. All right, y'all. If you like what you hear, share this. And you know where you find us. You can go to the nonconformist.io. All right, Mike, that's going to be it. We'll have an episode out Thursday. That's going to be the next live one. We'll be spitting to you then. All right, man.
All right, peace out, guys.
Peace, y'all.